He didn't believe in life after death. Not because he was ignorant, but because he knew the brain better than most people on the planet. 25 years of neurosurgery, Harvard, hundreds of operations. He knew exactly how the brain creates consciousness, how neurons generate thoughts, images, sensations. And that's exactly why he knew. When the brain shuts down, everything disappears. This isn't an opinion. This is neuroscience. Then in November 2008, his own brain shut down, completely for 7 days. And what happened during those 7 days, he shouldn't have been able to remember, because there was nothing left to create it. Stop. Don't turn this off, because what you're about to hear is not a story about a light at the end of a tunnel. It's something far more specific, far more strange. And what he found there permanently changed everything we thought we knew about death. In this video, you'll learn why his case cannot be explained by science, and why his Harvard colleagues still can't find an answer. The 3 levels of the afterlife he described, specifically in detail, with details that couldn't have been invented. The most shocking detail of his experience, the one that's been verified and that changes everything, and what this means personally for you. Stay with me, because one detail at the end of this video will change how you look at death, forever. Let's start with why this case is different, because thousands of people describe near-death experiences, and skeptics explain it simply: hallucinations of a dying brain, endorphin release, oxygen deprivation, neural activity at the moment of shutdown. Sounds convincing. Until you encounter Alexander's case, because his case makes that explanation impossible, literally, mathematically, neurosurgically, for the brain to generate hallucinations. You need activity in the cerebral cortex. That is a basic neurobiological fact that nobody disputes. No cortical activity, no hallucinations, no images, no experience. Full stop. In Alexander's case, the cortex didn't just reduce its activity, it was completely shut down by bacterial meningitis, confirmed by medical measurements across all 7 days of the coma. His brain could not have created what he described. Physically, could not. It's like claiming a switched-off computer is playing video on the screen. Screen is off, processor is off, video is impossible. And yet, he saw it. That is exactly why his colleagues, neurosurgeons and neurobiologists from the world's leading universities, cannot explain his experience. Not refusing to explain it for ideological reasons. Literally cannot, because the data doesn't fit any existing model. Now, what exactly he saw? And brace yourself, because this is not clouds and harps. This is something far more structured and far more strange. Alexander described 3 separate levels of reality, 3 different states of existence with different laws and different natures. The first level he called the earthworm's eye view. Dark, primitive, filled with a sense of existence without thought, without memory, without personality. An organic darkness, pulsating being without context. Later, he described this as the lowest level of existence, the densest, the darkest, the furthest from what he would later call the core. Unpleasant, but not frightening. He knew this was not the final destination, that he needed to move higher. The second level, the one that took up most of his time there, he called it the gateway, and this is where the thing happened that changed everything. A space of extraordinary beauty, not just visual, total. Meadows, trees, waterfalls, beings that sang, and their singing was simultaneously music, light, and meaning. Millions of butterflies. He described colors that don't exist in our world, for which there are no words in any human language, because our sensory organs perceive only a narrow band of reality. There were no limits, and here, the detail that changes everything. Sitting on the petal of an enormous butterfly was a girl, young, beautiful. She looked at him with an expression he described as impossible for a human face, because it held everything simultaneously. Absolute love, absolute acceptance, absolute understanding. She didn't speak. She transmitted directly into his consciousness 3 messages. First, you are loved and cherished forever. There is nothing you can ever do that would make you unloved. Second, You are never alone and never will be. Third, there is nothing to be afraid of, not words, direct knowledge, downloaded into him bypassing language, bypassing interpretation, simply knowledge, absolute, without doubt. He came back. He opened his eyes. His family was there. And several months later, as he was trying to understand what had happened, his family showed him a photograph of his biological sister, whom he had never seen. He had been adopted as a child. His biological sister had died before they ever got the chance to meet. He had never seen her face, and when they showed him the photo, his breath stopped. The girl on the wing of the butterfly, the one who had transmitted love and acceptance without words, it was her, his sister whom he had never known, whom he had never seen, whose face he could not have known, but whom he recognized instantly. Think about that. A man in a coma with a completely non-functioning brain met someone he didn't know and couldn't have known in life, and this was verified by a photograph after he returned. Not a story he invented, not a hallucination, because where does a switched-off brain get the face of a person it has never seen? This is one of the details his colleagues cannot explain, at all in any way. Now, a second documented case that makes the picture even clearer. Pam Reynolds, an American woman, 1991. Brain surgery. To perform the operation, doctors deliberately stopped her heart and cooled her brain to a temperature at which any brain activity becomes physically impossible. This is a medical procedure called hypothermic cardiac arrest. Pam's brain was switched off deliberately, completely, under instrument monitoring. The doctors knew exactly when it happened and exactly when brain activity resumed. During this period, while her brain was physically switched off, Pam described detailed observations of her own surgery, conversations between the surgeons, specific instruments being used, details she could not have known, which were verified by the surgical team and matched completely. Her consciousness was observing the operation while her brain was switched off. 2 cases, 2 different people, 2 different types of brain shutdown, one and the same impossible phenomenon, consciousness existing independently of the brain. The third level, the one Alexander called the core. And this is the part of his description that goes completely beyond human language. Darkness, but not empty darkness. Darkness filled with presence. A light that was not light waves, but something that was simultaneously light and love and knowledge and being. A sound that was not a sound, but the vibration of existence itself. And in this state, the distinction between the one who knows and what is known disappeared. He was part of that knowledge. He was part of what creates reality. He described it as coming home, not in the sense of nostalgia, in the sense that this is where you came from, the place you came out of into physical life. And Casey described the same thing, from trance, in different words, 70 years ago, about the same thing. The brain is a receiver. Consciousness is a field that exists independently, and the death of the body doesn't destroy consciousness for the same reason that a broken radio receiver doesn't destroy the radio station. Now, what this means for science, briefly, because it matters. Dr. Pim van Lommel, a Dutch cardiologist who conducted the largest clinical study of near-death experiences in history, 344 patients, said the following: "Our model of the relationship between the brain and consciousness is incomplete. A thermostat correlates with the temperature in the room, but doesn't create it. Perhaps the brain correlates with consciousness, but doesn't create it. Perhaps the brain is a receiver rather than a source. And the cases of Alexander and Reynolds are the strongest evidence for that model that we have. After Alexander's book was published in 2012, his Harvard colleagues were unable to find an explanation that fitted the medical data. They didn't stop looking, they just couldn't find one. Those are fundamentally different things. Alexander changed in 3 ways immediately after returning. First, his fear of death disappeared. Completely. Not because he convinced himself there was nothing to be afraid of, but because he knew he had been there, and there was nothing there to fear. Second, his relationship to other people changed. The message the girl transmitted, "You are loved and cherished forever," was not a personal message for him alone. It was true for every person, for every single human being he encounters, and that knowledge changes every interaction. Looking at a person knowing they are absolutely loved, that's a different experience. Third, his understanding of the meaning of physical life changed. There was no suffering there in our sense of the word, no limitations. But there was this life, with pain, with uncertainty, with difficulty, and he understood. It is precisely the limitations that make this experience valuable. The soul comes here not in spite of the difficulties, because of them, because what can only be experienced here, in a physical body, in a physical world, is not available there. And that makes every hard, heavy, confusing day part of something far greater than you can see from here. One final question. The one Alexander asks himself every day since 2008. If consciousness is not a product of the brain, then who are you? Not your body, not your thoughts, not your personality. Who is the one who uses all of that as a tool? Who is the one who was on the wing of the butterfly beside a sister he had never known and received messages of love without words? Who is the one watching this video right now? Alexander says, that question is the most important question a person can ask themselves, not because there is a simple answer, but because the act of asking it changes how you live. Write in the comments, what do you think about what he described? Is there an explanation you can see? Or is this the thing that changes everything?